Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. This is the post-match reaction live stream with me and Paul, and Everton have sunk to a new low. Again, we've just been beaten by Norwich City 2-1 at Carrow Road against a team who, going into that game, hadn't scored in their previous 6 games, and we found ourselves 2-0 down in 15 minutes. And it just, the only silver lining I can possibly take from this is that surely to Jesus Christ and the 12 disciples, this has got to be the final nail in the coffin for Benitez now. Surely there's you can't come back from this now. Everton have took, I think I saw a tweet saying we've took about 6 points in the last 3.5 months, something like that.
Yeah,
2 wins since September. It's sickening, to be honest. It's
six
sickening,
points
and
out of
it's
about
gone on.
39.
It's gone on far too long, and now I think we are in real danger going into this game. I said that if we get beat by these today, then I I think it's been quite touch and go in previous weeks whether about this fear about getting relegated, and I thought we'd know more at the end of this game. But good lord, now I do feel like that there is a real genuine reason to be concerned. I'm joined by Paul McAllister, and we're going to be talking about what we've just witnessed. Paul, what are your thoughts, mates, on another terrible dark day for this club?
Does it really surprise anyone,
No,
considering what you've been watching the past 3 months or whatever? There's no team that's too crap for us to not look even worse against, isn't there? We were against Hull last week, who were right down the bottom of the Championship. We got outplayed by them for large parts of the game and went down early to them and ended up backs to the wall, everyone's sweating buckets type of performance against them. I can't remember the last time we played a game and made it look comfortable. Never mind easy.
no, no.
So yeah, I've been banging the drum for months saying I don't think we're going to go down, and hands on heart, I still don't think we will. But that would only be if Rafa Benitez is not in charge for the rest of the season. I think if he stays in charge, then yeah, I could see us going right down there, because I just don't see where we're going to get 10 points from the rest of the season. I really don't.
I have to agree with you. I have to agree. I mean, you pointed out the whole game last week in the club. I thought we were very lucky there. I think Hull came out of that game feeling very hard done by. I think we rolled our luck against Hull. Week before, again, Brighton, which was terrible. And then we've come against Norwich today, which you'd expect, every team in the Premier League would go into this game expecting to beat Norwich City. They're by a country mile. We've sort of used them as this sort of reassurance that, at least that our team's worse than Everton. And I think Norwich City was in that bracket. But after watching that today,
Yeah, there's the proof there isn't.
it's
Yeah.
frightening. Yeah, it's brought it home a bit more for me today. I think I've been throughout the week on Twitter. I'm sure many people watching as well. People have been in spaces or seeing tweets and whatever, and it's just in the last week or so, it's got quite real now and really quite frightening. I think that this man just can't be in charge of this club any longer. He just cannot drive us any further into the ground because I was looking at the end of the game there. He brought up the league table, and Norwich and Watford, no, Norwich and Watford, Newcastle and Watford got a point each today. You look at Burnley's game in hand, and I think that worries me is our running as well. You look at our running towards the end of the season. There are some
It doesn't
really,
bear thinking about, does
really,
it?
yeah. And if we were to sort of stay up, this run of fixtures we were looking at, Brighton, Norwich, and Villa next week, and the games we've got coming up on the horizon, Southampton. These were the games that we had to step up to, and it gave us maybe a lifeline. Maybe if we win these games, or maybe give us a chance. But we've lost against Brighton, we've lost against Norwich, and it just seems like it's just gonna keep going on. So, do you believe that Rafa Benitez will be sacked now? That surely has to be it, doesn't it?
It's a hard one, this, because I think if it was any other manager and any other owner, then yes, the manager would be sacked. But Moshiri's that much of a lunatic, and he's gone on record publicly to defend Benitez so much, and the fact that it is Benitez, I can't hand on my heart say I think he will be. I mean,
Yeah.
I really want to believe deep down, my common sense is screaming at me, he will be sacked. There's no coming back from that. There shouldn't have been any coming back from Brighton.
Yeah.
Really, they should
He should have been.
probably
He should have been gone after the derby, in my opinion.
he should have been gone probably after even was Wolves even earlier than that. Brentford.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
100%.
probably
Yeah.
should have been gone after Wolves.
Yeah.
But again, just this owner's a lunatic, and this owner's hitched his wagon to Benitez. my common sense is saying yes, he will be sacked, but my heart is saying no, he won't be, because I just know in my heart what far out Moshiri's like, and the fact that it's Everton, and you just can't rely on Everton to do the sensible thing when it comes to pretty much anything. Something is screaming in front. Something is right there in front of you, screaming to be done. That's the correct decision, and Everton just never seem to do it. Whether it's dropping players, whether it's signing players, whether it's selling players, whether it's sacking managers, whether it's replacing certain people off the pitch in boardroom roles, Everton just never do the obvious correct thing, do they? So I'm praying to God he gets the sack, but it's one of them.
Like there's a big part of us that can see it, like can see him riding it out and just listen to these god awful press conferences that he puts out every week and listen to the same spiel every single week and watching performances like that. I mean, what did you think of the team selection today, Paul? Obviously, the team news came out and it was sort of it was a bit of a stranger one. I think 4-4-2, Rondon and Calvert-Lewin starting up front. It seemed going into the game that we had a few more options on the bench, which was encouraging to see. We seemed to have, strongest bench that I could see in a while, but still, it just wasn't enough. We saw a lot of individual headers today. Michael Keane, Anthony Gordon wasn't great today. Vitaly Michalenko didn't think covered himself in much glory today either. So, what are your thoughts on the setup of the side today?
Again, it doesn't really surprise you when you've been watching Everton for the last few months, like we have. The fact that the lineup was just bonkers was like when you see the lineup itself, that's grounds on its own to sack this manager, considering how stupid it is. Rondon starting again. I'm not even going to touch that.
Paul, isn't it?
I'm not. Yeah, I haven't got the breath left to talk about that fella.
Yeah.
Michalenko, we had to play him because we've just sold Dean. And I felt sorry for Michalenko. He looked so nervous. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
He looked so nervous in that game today. But he's been thrown in the deep end. He's having to play because there's no realistic left back option. And
he's come into a very
we've signed him to be a
as well, hasn't he? It's like
he's come into a very toxic environment. His English isn't great, apparently, and I don't know if he speaks any other languages, but he's probably finding the communication with his teammates very, very difficult at the moment. He's being asked to play in a role that he's not cut out for, which is a wing back, and he was trying to play as wing back in the cup against Hull. The whole reason Dean has left the club and had this falling out with Benitez is because Dean wanted to play as a wing back who got forward, and Benitez was trying to tell him to basically stay in our half and to just play as an old-fashioned defender, a fullback, in the likes that you used to see a decade, 15 years ago. So we've had a world-class wing back there, or what many people would consider a world-class wing back, who we've told you can't be a wing back, and if you don't like that, there's the door, get out. And we've signed some kids from Ukraine who no one's really heard of to any great extent. I mean, it wasn't like this wonder kid who everyone was after, was he? I mean, he got scouted by a couple of clubs apparently, but it wasn't like we were having to beat off the competition to get him, were we? As far as we know. So we could have gone and got that kid in the summer if we'd have wanted to, but is what I'm trying to say. So we went and got some inexperienced kid who's never played outside of Ukraine before, who is a full-back. Every scouting report you see, anyone who's watched them, anyone who's got any sort of clue about these smaller leagues around Europe or watches all these Dynamo Kiev games in the Champions League, all say that he is a full-back and he's a defensive player. Crossing's not his big thing. He's much more an old-fashioned defender, which can work when you play in the right system and you've got a manager who's got the tactics down pat. I felt sorry for him. He's, 20, 21? He's been thrown in a Premier League game with all the spotlight on him. He's probably can't say more than a few words to his teammates that they understand, and they vice versa. I just felt so bad for him. And Michael Keane going on to him, it's the same old thing with Michael Keane, isn't it? He's not a top half Premier League footballer. I don't think he's a diabolical footballer. I think he could go somewhere and do all right under the right manager and the right setup, but that is not an Everton Football Club, and an Everton Football Club that considers itself to be a top half club at the bare minimum and wants to push on and get in Europe and challenge for things. Michael Keane doesn't belong at any club that's got those type of ambitions or that sort of image of themselves. He's just a bog standard central defender who's very limited, who can do all right half the time and do really, really badly the other half of the time. So it doesn't really surprise me when he throws in a clanger.
Keane was really poor today. Michael Keane was woeful today. I thought,
clangers a part of his game. He always have been.
Yeah. As soon as he scored that own goal, his head just went for the remainder of the game, to be honest. And we just, like you just pointed out, Paul, we just see it time and time again with Keane, don't we? I've seen a lot of people say he's a confidence player, but if you want to be competing at the better end of the league, you can't rely on confidence players, can you, to be in your side?
You can only make excuses for confidence players when they are capable of winning a game on their own. I think defenders, you can't be a confidence player if you're a defender, at least not at a high level. If you're a forward player or a creative midfielder, you can maybe get away with it because even when you're low on confidence or you're having a bad game, the players next to you can maybe pick up the slack and you can get through those rough periods. When you're a defender, the microscope's on you every single game. You make one stupid mistake or you lose concentration for 2 or 3 seconds, then it's usually going to result in a goal for the opposition, isn't it? Whereas when you're a striker or a midfielder, you can make the odd crappy pass, you can miss the odd brilliant chance to score, and people will get over it because there'll probably be someone else in the team who will make up for it over the course of the 90 minutes or over the course of the run of form that you're having. When you're a defender or a goalkeeper, you make one mistake and that's going to hang over you for weeks and weeks and weeks, isn't it? So, no, when you're a central defender, you can't be a confidence player unless you're someone like, I don't know, Sergio Ramos or Virgil van Dijk, where even when you're low on confidence, you're still better than 80-90% of the other defenders in the league. Michael Keane, when he's low on confidence, is probably amongst the worst central defenders in the league.
Yeah, I have to agree. Again, as we said before, totally poor from Michael Keane today. He was partnered with Ben Godfrey again, who I thought wasn't fantastic today. He got Vitaly Mykolenko out of jail with that horrendous back pass towards the end of the second half. But yeah, it was just so mediocre. Players going missing. I thought Calvert-Lewin was very quiet today. Didn't really do. I thought Gordon was quite poor today as well. You could argue, for the second, when he gets turned for the second goal, completely out-muscled for their second goal, and as soon as that went in, you just knew there was no coming back from this.
Yeah, and I'm not going to jump on Gordon too much, and I don't think anyone else should. Yeah, yes, he was poor today, but he's probably one of the only 1 or 2 players I can put my hands on my heart and say is out there, and he gives a toss. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be in the start.
Too much onus on
he shouldn't be in the starting lineup because again, it's too much pressure on him. Gordon's 2021, hasn't played a lot of Premier League games before this season. We shouldn't be in a position where we're having to rely on him to come on and be the leading light, be the spark. We've done that before with our young players like Tom Davis and Ross Barkley, and it's ended up sapping all the enthusiasm and confidence out of them. So Anthony Gordon should have players in front of him who should be mentoring him and giving him someone to look up to, rather than just him having to take it all on himself, because it's not fair to ask a lad of his age and his experience level to do that. So I feel sorry for Anthony.
Were you surprised not to see, especially into the second half? We saw changes. He brought Richarlison on, he brought Yerry Mina on for Coleman, and then obviously brought Richarlison on for Rondon, which again was far too late as far as I'm concerned. But were you quite surprised that Rafa did? We still had one more sub to make, and he didn't bring on Townsend, who was the difference against Hull in the cup at the weekend, or maybe even give El Ghazi a bit of last 10-15 minutes just to try and salvage something from the game, because we dire need of points.
Yeah, it was literally
why didn't Rafa make any sort of proactive change, some sort of positivity? Just inject a bit of flair into the side. I expected that he would have brought Townsend on, but it just that seemed like the obvious sub to make at the time. But it just seemed to be no sign of that at all, did he? Which is again it's just mind-boggling, isn't it?
Why didn't he do it? Because he's out of his depth and he hasn't got a clue. It's that simple. I know he's Rafa Benitez, but Rafa Benitez, I've said this before, hasn't been a world-class manager. If he ever was one in the first place, he certainly hasn't been one for at least a decade. And I'm sick of everyone on the or these people in the media like Jim White and Martin Keown and all these ex-Liverpool players like Carragher pretending that he is. He's done nothing in 10 years to suggest that, apart from win some cups that he absolutely should have been winning with the quality that he had in the teams he was managing. No, I mean, I am shocked I didn't see Townsend at least, because Townsend, he's going to come on and give you a 6 or a 7 out of 10, isn't he?
He's got a goal in him.
Yeah, and that's all we needed at that point. I'm not saying he would have came on and he would have absolutely made the difference, but he would have come on and he'd have been doing better than a lot of the other players we were seeing out there. It would have been a proactive sub. And I was shocked we didn't see El Ghazi, but again, reports to be believed, Benitez doesn't even want El Ghazi. It's the owner sticking his own in again.
Adds to the madness, doesn't it?
And Benitez is the type of fella where he will rip his nose off to spite his face if there's a player who's been forced upon him. No matter how dire the situation is or how desperate we are at a game, he won't use that player just to basically stick it to whoever he wants to stick it to. He's done it before. He did it at Chelsea. He's done it at Liverpool. He treated Robbie Keane very poorly, didn't he? When he didn't want Robbie Keane at Liverpool, he tried to make an example out of John Terry when he wouldn't play him at Chelsea, and lost that battle, didn't he? Tried it with loads of them at Inter Milan. Tried to drop certain players when
Javi Alonso for Liverpool as well. Yeah.
not just like, I'm not saying in the sense that he forced players out. I mean, there was players he had available to him who he just refused to use, even when it would have been.
Cut his nose off to spite his face, like you say.
Even when it was clear that they would have improved the team by putting them back in. The players he was using over them weren't justifying their positions in the team, and he still wouldn't drop them because it would have meant putting these other players back in who he doesn't want at the club. Even with Dean, he did it the other week. Dean was halfway out the door, wasn't he? But he was available on the bench, so he was clearly making himself available to play that game if called upon. But Benitez, again, would rather play a finished right back and Seamus Coleman at left wing back, just to say to Luca Dean, yeah, screw you, get out the club ASAP. So, no, I'm not surprised, but I'm incredibly disappointed. And it's made me so sad because this is the worst I can ever remember feeling as an Evertonian now. I've always said it was really terrible under Martinez. It went really, really scary in that season where it all went terribly wrong under Koeman after that exciting.
Like the 3-0 at Sunderland towards the end of Martinez's time, that was horrendous, wasn't it? But I agree with you. This feels like another level, to be honest.
This is even worse than when we had to sack Koeman and we were having that interim spell under Unsworth, and it just felt like the way the sky was falling.
Like 4-1 at Southampton and everything.
Yeah, and we had to.
It just feels another level, doesn't it?
Yeah, it felt like we'd sunk so low that we had to call on Sam Allardyce of all people to manage Everton. It's got even beyond that now for me. I'd snap your hands off for Sam Allardyce to come in for the end of the season.
Yeah,
and I never thought I'd say that.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd say that.
Yeah, it's just. I don't know. It comes back down to Rafa Benitez. He's destroying the club inside and out. And as we said earlier on, he should have went a long time ago. But here we are. We've just
one other thing I want to mention as well. I'm sure you've seen that, but it's going to be doing the rounds for weeks now, if not months. That still image of him with his hands clasped together and a little grin on his face.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Now, obviously, a still image doesn't tell the full story, does it? I mean, anyone can take an embarrassing still image of anybody and try and spin it while they want to spin it. But I'm sorry, when you're 2-0 down to Norwich, you should not be smiling, full stop, no matter what the circumstances is, even if it's just for a brief second. You should not be smiling. It's not the time to smile. Mate, everyone is ripping their hair out and going crazy, and the club's in chaos, and the players on the pitch look utterly lost and in need of leadership, and you're just sitting there smiling to yourself. And he did the same in other games this season. He did it against Watford as well when we were 5-2. He started grinning to himself and talking to himself and saying, why aren't these players kind of doing what I told them to do? It was a criticism against Solskjaer at United, wasn't it? That he was all too
happy laddie,
and giving the odd little grin. And I get it, with some people, it's just a tick. I wouldn't really hold it against them if they were kind of in a post-match interview and they were at the microphone in the face and they're kind of just trying to think on the spot. Sometimes just
when you're on the touchline against Norwich City and
you're on the touchline and there's no one around you demanding answers out of you, and you're just basically in your own head with your thoughts.
Given the circumstances of the club,
you should not be thinking of anything that's making you grin, even if it's like a sarcastic grin. No, that just shows the man's attitude. He's arrogant. That's him not taking any responsibility. That's him grinning to himself, thinking, these stupid idiots again. They're not listening to what I told them to do. What have I got to do to drill it into their skull? It's a classic example of someone not taking any responsibility for themselves and putting all the responsibility on the players, grinning to himself as if, if only they'd have done what I told them to do, we wouldn't be in this mess, would we? No, look at yourself, mate. You fat, arrogant so-and-so.
Well, this is it, isn't it? You know what? I watched the game in the booze and I came up and I've just jumped straight on the stream, so I haven't really seen too much of the fallout. I haven't seen any of his post-match interviews, but I can probably imagine.
I don't want to hear what he's got to say.
He's probably going to be blaming everyone but himself. It's going to be, mistakes that we need to work on, everything that we've heard for just far too long now, and I'm with you. I just don't even want to tune in for them anymore. But one thing I will say that I did see before we jumped on the stream was the scenes in the away end at the end. It seems that things were getting thrown at the players. There seems to be a real anger. And, but it's nothing we haven't already seen already, and we've seen the away end against Brentford earlier in the season, against Palace, and this just
there was a pitch invader again. I saw as well.
Of course, the pitch invader came on, and I don't know. It's just like we have Aston Villa at the early kickoff on Saturday, and that is just it's set up just to be the perfect storm, isn't it? Now, really, if he's still in charge at this point, which hopefully he's not.
It was old buddy Stephen a favour, do Stephen a favour.
Yeah, you can see that the images coming out onto Twitter of him shaking hands with Gerrard and that, having
big hug, grin.
Yeah. You can just see it already, can't you? What's going to happen? And I go back to that point I made before about how the Aston Villa game now almost looks like a perfect storm in a way, and because there's going to be an angry Goodison if he is still in charge. But we can't categorically sit here and say that he won't be, because like you've just pointed out earlier in the stream, the club's being managed by a madman who probably.
My common sense again is screaming at me that he won't be in charge. I think even Moshiri, as crazy and deluded as he is, will look at that, and even he will think, God, I can't have absolute anarchy at the game. I can't be having, because there was only one fella who ran on the pitch today in the away end. There's going to be multiple people running on the pitch in that. I'm not calling for that. I don't condone that. But at the end of the day, some people are just going to lose their heads, aren't they? And not think rationally, and people are going to run on, and it's going to get nasty is an understatement.
Especially if we concede an early goal, which seems to be a trend for Everton.
Yeah. I think just to avoid that scenario, even if Moshiri still stupidly believes that Benitez can do something with this club and turn it all around, I think just to avoid those chain of events that we've just talked about, just to avoid the absolute riot that will probably happen at Goodison if he's still there and we go behind against Aston Villa, I think he'll have his hand forced to sack Benitez.
Well, this is it, isn't it? I've seen.
If he doesn't, then he's a whole new level of crazy.
Well, this is it, and the calls are just going to be as strong for him to leave the club as well, which has become all the more stronger in the last week or so, anyway. But it's just the thing is, it's like you look at the situation at the minute, and the longer this goes on, I feel like we've done streams in the past and we've felt like this is rock bottom, or come out the derby, this is rock bottom. The Watford game, rock bottom, but going to Norwich and losing the way we did today, it's turning. We're just out of answers. It's turning ugly, isn't it?
It's turning into just apathy now, where people are just people have stopped letting it bother them as much as it did. Like, instead of just cursing and being so mad, they're just at the point now where they're just willing to divorce themselves from Everton. At least that's how I feel. I'm at the point
where nothing else that can be said. There's nothing else that can be said. Everyone's just waste.
I'm very close to the point where I just say to myself, what am I even giving these people my emotions for? What am I even giving them my attention? What do I waste this part? Why do I devote a big part of my life to this for, when they clearly don't care and they don't value me? And I'm not saying they have to win every single week, or they have to be doing everything I want them to do, but they have to at least be showing me that they are trying to do the right things, that they care as much as I do. And they're not even doing that, and they haven't done that for years now, largely. And now it's worse than ever. So I'm just very close to the point where I could divorce myself from Everton and not feel one bit like I've lost something important in my life.
I mean, I've seen so many people, put tweets out saying, like, any other manager wouldn't survive this at all. Even like people, respected journalists, pundits, and the people have been saying any other manager in any other club, they, you can't outlive this. Like, how is this? Like, we've sacked managers for less in the past 4. Silva, they got rid of him.
Oh yeah,
that was far less of a situation we were in now.
Yeah, Koeman was far less. I mean, I'm not a Koeman fan, but Koeman had a far harder run than this fella, and Koeman had loads of stupid signings forced upon him.
You even look at the likes of Sam Allardyce, who guided us that 8th finish. It's like,
it's not nice to admit that, is it? But Sam Allardyce has far more right to feel hard on right.
Haven't you? Yeah,
you have.
You've got to be real. And it's like we've got ourselves into such a position where we have this reputation for sacking managers, to the point where it came to a point now where his position's like intangible. But the owner doesn't want to force his hand out of all times. Like, he's got rid of all these managers in the past for less, but now when we are staring down the nose of relegation, he's like, we're getting a vibe that he wants to stick. But I don't know. The relegation thing scares me. I'll be honest with you, it does really scare me right now.
Even if it doesn't happen this season, I saw a very good tweet. Even if it doesn't happen this season, we have got an identical look to how Swansea and Sunderland's were in the years before they went down. Mid-noughties.
Villa before they went,
Villa before they went. Newcastle under Ashley. We just look like we just look like a rudderless ship. So even if we get away with it this season, we're not going to get away with it season after season after season. It's going to, unless something massive changes at the top, it's going to get us. We are going to sink. Do you know what I mean? If we don't go this season, we'll go next season or the season after that. And we are one of those clubs where if we went down, you would not put anything on us coming back. We could be one of those clubs like a Stoke or like a
Nottingham Forest or something.
Nottingham Forest or a Wigan in the just these clubs that go down and don't look like they're going to come back anytime soon. Like, God knows where Stoke even are now. God knows where Wigan are. These clubs that go down and everyone just utterly forgets about them. Even their own fans forget about them.
You think of the likes of Bolton, Blackburn,
Bolton,
clubs that are
Blackburn.
staples of the Premier League, and then they just disappear and fade away. And the way things are looking,
fade away. They're out
exactly...
in the they're out in the wilderness, aren't they? Even if we did go, I can't believe we're even having this conversation. But even if we did go down, I couldn't see us doing a Newcastle or doing a West Brom or doing a Norwich where we kind of come back up and we just kind of establish ourselves as something of a yo-yo club where, okay, we might not be good enough to hold our own in the Premier League, but we are definitely good enough to do well in the Championship, which is what Norwich and West Brom have basically been for all their existence, it feels like. They're a club and a team that they're always too good for the Championship, but they're usually not quite good enough to stay up in the Premier League. I can't see Everton even being that. If we carry on the way we are, we're going to be one of these clubs like a Blackburn, like a Swansea.
West Ham went down as well, didn't they, in like 2010, 11 or something like that? They
West Ham, and it took them a little while, but yeah, we're just going to be one of these clubs that go down, and we keep sinking and sinking and sinking and sinking, and God knows where we'll end up.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Because we're like you rightly pointed out, we are showing all the signs of these clubs that just everything just seems to be falling apart and nothing seems to be going our way at all. Like likes of Sunderland, Villa, West Ham, Blackburn, Bolton, and no one's ever too big to go down. I think for years we've sort of laughed off the idea of relegation, said, "Oh no, we're Everton." We always put it together. And okay, maybe in years gone by that has been the case, and we have had that bit of quality, maybe get us through, and Goodison, the fans pull us through and everything like that, and it's been there's been like a fight instilled in Everton, but now those qualities just seem to completely have evaporated at the minute.
Even when we had some,
I don't see how we're going to get out of this.
Even when we had some absolutely rubbish teams in the 90s and the early 2000s, and we were in relegation battles, we always had the passion in the fans. The fan base was passionate enough that we could just drag ourselves over the line, dogs of war, even when the team was not good. And the manager in the dugout was hopeless, like Mike Walker was, or like Kendall was in that third spell he had in the late 90s, or even I forget his name. Even when we've been in relegations battles in the past, the one thing we've always had that other clubs probably didn't have, and that was the reason they went down and we had a more passionate fan base. We had a fan base that would get into Goodison and make it rock, and would make these teams who come there crap themselves, and we get a big result or two to ultimately get us over the line, wouldn't we? There's none of that now. I can see us going. If we went down, I can see us going down.
One of the big themes of this season, ever since Ancelotti left, it's like a constant talking point. Is the fan base has never been as divided. Ever since Ancelotti left and Rafa came in, the point you've made there about how the fan base has always come together to pull us out of dark times. We don't even have that anymore because of how rudderless we are, and there's nothing to get behind, and that just adds to the concerns and the real. It's just so frightening that we actually could get pulled into a relegation fight. I mean, listen, Burnley are a terrible side. We all know this, but you look at Burnley. 5 games.
Pick them to beat us.
5 games in hand.
I picked them to beat us. The minute, Burnley.
If I know the game got called off and everything, but if we went to Turf Moor on Boxing Day, I would have backed Burnley to beat us then anyway. And that's. You look at the likes of Newcastle, Norwich. That they'll definitely take a lot of confidence from that today. Well, look at them in the league. They've gone up to 18th, and all of a sudden they're looking like
that finished 1-1.
Newcastle finished 1-1. Yeah. So Watford and Newcastle got a point apiece. Norwich have got 3 today.
How sad is it that I'm very relieved? How sad is it that I'm very relieved about that finished 1-1? When I last looked, it was Newcastle 1-0. That doesn't that tell you everything? That I'm extremely relieved that the teams in 17th and 18th got a 1-1 draw.
Yeah,
and only a point each.
It's just horrific, and we can go on about Benitez all we like, and he is a massive issue with him, and he needs to go. It's quite obvious, but we're not going to waste our breath on this anymore. Like, every Evertonian knows that this man has got to go, but you've got to even look at the likes of Moshiri. Like, even I take the El Ghazi signing in midweek, for example. Like, it's a deal on the back of like an understanding he has with his friend, and it's just like. Things like this are just, you look at January signings in the past, you look at the year when in January we brought in Darren Gibson, Nikita Jelavic, Pienaar, and they were signings that, were shrewd and everyone got
Arteta,
Arteta, and they turned our season around. But, it's just so flat at the minute. We don't want to go in on Vitaly Mykolenko too much, and he is a very nervous player, and it's not his fault ultimately, but do you look at these players and Nathan Patterson as well? We've not seen him kick a ball yet.
They're not going to come in and make an instant.
These aren't going to rescue us. These aren't going to turn our season round. Are these? But then you look at the flip side of that, and we're getting rid of players like Luca Dean. It's just there's just nothing really that you can look at the minute to give us a bit of hope.
We're getting rid of difference makers and replacing them with players who are who are not difference makers. One, because either they're not good enough, or two, they're too young and they haven't developed yet, or three, in the case of, I mean, this is going to sound very harsh because he's not even kicked the ball for us yet, but in the likes of El Ghazi, because they're just players who are not good enough for a team above us. So why would they be good enough for a team for us? They're not. He wasn't a difference maker.
They palm off to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to believe you're going to be a difference maker for us when you win a difference maker for a club that we consider to be our rivals. We should be getting above. So yeah, I mean, hopefully he proves me wrong with that and he comes in and does something. But is anyone holding the breath? No. Is anyone holding the breath that Nathan Patterson's going to come in and he's going to look like Cafu and make us instantly 100 times better? No. Is anyone holding the breath that Mikalenko's going to come in and be better than Dean was? No. Who else are we? Any other player we get linked with who ends up coming in because we're still looking to do a bit of business? Are we going to hold our breath that they're going to come in and just automatically give us a massive lift, like the way Darren Gibson did, like the way Pienaar did, like the way Jelavic did?
Yeah, like Donovan, Jelavic, yeah.
Donovan, that was another one. Yeah, no. So I think the only thing to do now is to sack Benitez, give it Ferguson until the summer. And I don't want Ferguson to get the job full time. I've said that on the record many times. I mean, if he got it now, I wouldn't complain because he can't do any worse than what this idiot's doing, this Paella man. But if Ferguson adds, how many games have we got left? About 15, 16?
15, 16, something.
Yeah, Ferguson...
The last 10 of which terrify the life out of me.
Yeah, I think give Ferguson 15 games. Ferguson, I think, would get us somehow 3 or 4 wins. I do believe that, 3 or 4 wins, and that would probably be enough. But again, it wouldn't solve the problem long term because even if we get away with it this season, what's the guarantee we're going to get away with it next season? Absolutely none. So I think all we can do is just do what Newcastle are thinking, which is just everything is very short term. Just get through this campaign, and hopefully we can just sort ourselves out in the summer. It's going to be a massive sorting out job, but you're not even going to get to that stage if we go down this season. So just focus on this next 15 games and just get someone in the dugout. Are you sure can get us 10, 11, 12 points? Because if we get to over 30, that'll probably be enough to make sure we don't go down, at least for this season. And that is so depressing. That's so depressing to even say, but that's where the situation's got to.
You know, hypothetically, if Benitez does get sacked and, you know, let's say, for example, Ferguson does come in for the end of the season, you know, even if that does just unite the fan base a little bit, you know, you mentioned earlier on how, like, in the past when we've got big results has been down to the fans and, you know, making that atmosphere at Goodison. And even if that just unites the fans just to, you know, squeeze just a few more points out of this season just to get us in the clear, then so be it. Because at the minute, it just doesn't look like this is we're going nowhere fast with Rafa Benitez. And, you know, Peter Collins just put in the comments there, according to Rafa, you know, I'm just guessing he's might have said this after the game.
Oh, what's Rafa,
he needs more time. He needs more time, apparently. Rafa's come out and said he needs more time with these players. But how much, like...
I need some more time, mate. If I was given some more time, I'd end up looking like Chris Hemsworth. Give me some more time. Like, because what I've just said is just as realistic as what he's just said. No. Rafa Benitez... is in the Rafa Benitez business. He's in cover his arse mode, and he's been in cover his arse mode since the minute he got here. And he's always goes into cover his arse mode at every job he gets. He was in cover his arse mode at Newcastle. He was in cover his arse mode at Liverpool. He was in cover his arse mode at Chelsea, Napoli, Inter Milan, Real Madrid. Some clubs he goes into, and if the owners are really unpopular when he gets there, he manages to con those supporters into getting on his side and taking out all the frustrations on the owners. It worked at Liverpool because he had Ix and Gillette as the antagonists, didn't he? Sounded like Terry now, using all these big posh words. But he had Hicks and Gillette, who he knew were unpopular with the supporters. So anything that went wrong with the club, the supporters would just blame it on Hicks and Gillette. Same at Newcastle. Mike Ashley, all the fans would blame Mike Ashley and assume that Benitez was the saviour who knew what he was talking about. He tried it into Milan, got thrown out on his backside. Tried it at Real Madrid, thrown out on his backside. Tried it at Chelsea, fans weren't having him. They didn't hate Abramovich. The fans were just frustrated because they'd gone from winning the Champions League to having a mid-season crisis, and a mid-season crisis for them was being in like 7th or 8th. And it didn't work at Chelsea because the supporters knew what he was, just a fat, arrogant man who looks down his nose at them, and they hounded him out the job, and they got him out the job because they made it abundantly clear they would absolutely never accept him as Chelsea manager, no matter what he did. And this is what Evertonians need to do now. We've been doing it anyway, but it needs to get the heat needs to be turned up now. I'm not talking about going to his house and throwing bricks through the windows. I don't want that. You know what I mean? He's a human being. I don't want fans running on the pitch trying to get him. Again, I'm not interested in seeing the fella beaten up or seeing his family or his life made absolutely miserable off the pitch. But the pressure's got to be ramped up in the stadiums, outside the stadiums. We've got to force Moshiri's hand to the point where if he doesn't sack Rafa Benitez, then it's just going to be a constant noise down his ear that he's never going to get rid of. Sack this fella, sack this fella, sack this fella. And eventually he'll have to give in.
Well, we've seen in the last week so that apparently Benitez met with Moshiri and Moshiri convinced him that he's got it. But I don't know how much legs it in that.
Yeah, I mean, but even if that's true, I don't put much stock in that because Moshiri said the same about Koeman. He gave Koeman his backing publicly and he was gone 2-3 weeks later. He said it to Silva more than once, and then he actually went to Finch Farm and sacked Silva himself in person. Do you know what I mean? He told Allardyce that he was the most underrated manager in the Premier League and how he deserved a big job. And after 6 months, he got rid of Allardyce really coldly and brutally, didn't he? So
I feel like
Moshiri's mind.
For Rafa today.
Yeah, so Moshiri changes his mind. Moshiri changes his mind every time he switches a light on in his house. It doesn't matter what he says publicly or how many meetings he has with them and tells them that the future's safe. I don't buy into that. He'll just sack Benitez whenever he feels like he wants to sack him. And if he doesn't sack him, doesn't feel like sacking him after this today, then God help Everton Football Club.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? Because going into this game, there was a lot of made of it. It was a must-win game. We had a lot of first teamers back.
6-pointer.
It was quite a strong side. It was a 6-pointer. It was a game that we should 100% be winning. And it's not even like we were plagued by injuries, which has been one of Rafa's favourite excuses this season. We've gone into this game with a lot of our first teamers, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin are in the squad, and we've gone and we were 2-0 down within 15 minutes. So
he started. This just sums up Rafa Benitez at Everton, and anyone who wants to defend him, I don't know any Evertonian who is, but for all his idiots, his cheerleaders in the media, like all his ex-Liverpool players like Carragher, and the likes of Jim White, who's got a relationship with Moshiri, and the likes of Martin Keown, who's just an absolute buffoon, doesn't know what he's talking about. Rafa Benitez started Solomon Rondon over Richarlison today when Richarlison was fit and ready to go. If that doesn't merit a sacking, then I don't know what does.
And refused to make a proactive substitution when we were 2-1 down.
It was 2-1 down, chasing the game, and finished the game with loads of first teamers on the bench, and still didn't use his final sub. The man is
in Townsend on the bench, ready to come on.
Yeah, even then, the man is absolutely inept. He hasn't got a clue.
Because even if he brings them on and we don't get the result, at least you suppose he could maybe argue that okay, he's made something to try and be proactive, but there's none of it. Paul, there's none of it. He just doesn't want to know, and he's like you said earlier on, he cut his nose off to spite his face, doesn't he? If it is to believe about El Ghazi, and it just makes no sense. He brings Townsend on against Hull last week, and Townsend came out and said that he didn't want to hit it with his left foot because he might have injured himself even more. But he brings him on against Hull anyway. But then we're 2-1 down against bottom of the league with fighting for the point in a 6-pointer, as you said, and he's nowhere to be seen. It just doesn't make sense. It makes and no logic behind any of it.
He's driving out a world class left wing back because he doesn't want it, because he wanted him to play full back, and the player said to him, "That's not the best way to use me." Drove out a world class left wing back because he didn't like playing full back, and then he signs, I suppose, a full back who will be happy to play there, and then plays him as a wing back. This Everton spell right now, if I was a non-Everton fan, I was just looking through this with neutral eyes, I would look at this and say, this spell that Benitez is having at Everton is proving that he is a chronically overrated manager and has been for some time. He is not as good as all his idiots, defenders in the media make out he is. Just because he's a darling. Terry said it. It's probably because he's a Liverpool legend and he gave Liverpool their greatest night in their history. And a lot of these people in the media are either Liverpool fans or are people who just love managers who've won Champions Leagues with English clubs. And the same with Newcastle. A lot of these people, they're not necessarily Newcastle fans, but they have this soft spot for Newcastle because they were good to watch in the 90s, all these writers, and they liked having a manager who came in and basically stood up for the Newcastle fans, or had everyone thinking he was standing up for the Newcastle fans. I've gone through it. All he was doing was protecting himself. So this Everton reign, whatever you want to call it, has summed up how just terrible Benitez actually is as a manager in the year 2021. And I hope we don't be. We're not going to hear anything from the likes of that Guillaume Balaguer and everyone else. And if Carragher rocks up on a space or something tonight, I hope he stops all this farcical defence of Benitez as well. Because the more they defend him, the more they're just making themselves look like idiots or just agenda-driven buffoons.
Yeah, well, we've done a lot of these streams, haven't we? And it seems like it just gets worse and worse every week. And we've hit a new low today. And just before we wrap up the stream, I'm just going to put one question to you. Dead simple. Will Rafa Benitez be in the dugout for the Villa game?
Yes.
Yeah, deep down, I agree with you, Paul. I agree with you.
Yes, knowing this owner, I think he'll lose the Villa game and we'll have anarchy at the Villa game.
Same conversation. I can see it. We'll be here this
time
next week. Conversation.
If I had to put money on it, my money would be on we go into the Villa game with him as manager. We get beat again. Performance is diabolical, and I think
the ground goes into meltdown.
The ground goes into meltdown, and I think Moshiri just sacks him then, just to basically save his own neck, rather than the fact that he's lost faith in Benitez. I don't think he's ever going to lose faith in Benitez. I think when he does sack Benitez, it will just be because he's had his hand forced, because if the situation's just got that toxic.
Because we ain't beating Villa. No way we're beating Aston Villa next week. Not a chance of we beating Aston Villa next week. So that could really be the final. If
we sack him before Aston Villa, then I'd be confident of beating Aston Villa, because
it could be.
If we had Ferguson or someone in the dugout,
Chelsea moment sort of thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Before you know it, you've got 3 points.
Yeah, I can see that happening. But Benitez in the dugout, even with a full strength team, not getting anything out of that game just because of the manager.
We've got no hope for us, Paul. We've gone to Norwich City today, who have an absolutely abysmal record in this division, and they've put 2 past us in the opening 15 minutes. You can't defend it, and you look at this Everton side, 6 points in 3.5 months. It's a disgrace.
6 points out of about 39.
Yeah, it's an absolute disgrace, and we can all see that the obvious thing to do is to sack him, but we all know this circus of a football club at the minute. We don't know if that's going to happen, and if he does stay, then this could be a really, I don't know, a really dark time in the club's history.
Yeah. Start looking up where the pubs are for Luton away. Start looking up the pubs where Luton is and where the likes of Ipswich is.
Yeah, we're at a crossroads now. If we want to save this club from going into a place that we never thought we'd be, then we're at a crossroads and some action needs to be taken. But as I say, we all know this club we supported, they're inept in everything they do. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But these are very worrying times, Paul.
Yeah, mate, just try not. All I would say to anyone is try not to let it bother you too much to the point where it really affects your mental health, because at the end of the day, it is only football.
It's not worth it.
No, it's not. It's not. That's what I'm getting to. No one's died. Do you know what I mean?
There's more to life than worrying about Rafa Benitez.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's really, really hard, but again, no one's died. No one's had their house taken off them. Nobody's lost the job. Well, hopefully someone will lose the job, but no one's lost the job who's going to possibly go out end up on the streets because of it. So, yeah, all I'd say to anyone who's really just doesn't know what to do with themselves because they're in that much despair over what's going on, it is just football. Don't please try not to let it bother you that much. Yeah, more important things in life, what's going on.
We'll draw the stream to a close there on that note. It's been another really disappointing day for us, and hopefully, maybe see what happens over the next week, see if there's any developments over the next week, but who knows? But as Paul just said...
One thing I will say is, I'm not holding my breath that this kind of gets any legs, because we tried it a few weeks ago, and it flopped. Anyone who really cares about this club and wants to see a change, then get involved in that sit-in protest, because at least those supporters are trying to get the word out to the media and to the club directly that they're not having this anymore. They're not happy to just sit back.
And even if it's not for you, and it's not if you're not a sort of confident sort of person,
even if it's not for you, or you
don't give stick to the ones who are trying to
make change. Even if it's not for you, you don't want to do that, or even if you just physically can't do it because you've got to nip off after the game. Don't knock the people who are doing it, because their art's in the right place, and Benitez's art isn't in the right place. You never convinced me that, and Moshiri's head's not in the right place. Never mind his art. So so anyone who's really, really upset and wants to get across to how angry they are and how desperate they are to see Benitez go and to see the board all leave, or at least have a massive shake-up, try and get involved in that sit-in protest, because at least that's something. At least that's a public way of showing how angry you are, rather than just writing it on Twitter or coming on here to have a moan. Because we know the club are not going to watch this, not going to watch any fan channel and pay any attention to it. You need to actually do it in front of the cameras. So
it has to be at Goodison in front of the cameras, and
with the media there,
and that. Because that's the way it's looking. But yeah, could be an interesting week ahead of us. All right, Paul, we'll leave it there, mate. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Be sure to drop us a like and subscribe if you haven't done already.
Enjoy your Saturday night, everybody.
Too much. Everyone, take it easy.
I can't, because I'm self-isolating. I've got the Rona, so
bloody hell.
I can't even go out and have a bevy.
Just to add to it.
And I can't even go to shop and buy bevies. It could always be worse, couldn't it? So,
all right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in. As I say, drop us a like if you haven't done so already, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we'll be back with some more content over the next week. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. And enjoy the rest of your weekend.